Should we actually buy that Colorado is going to blow out Utah? Yeah, and I'll tell you why.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your daily source to stay up to date with this, the greatest sport on planet Earth, and all of its biggest stories. This episode brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege, and you get $20 off your first purchase. That's pretty good. That's pretty darn good. Kevin Borba, also pretty darn good, which is, I'm sure, how he aspires to have people describe him as a guest. Locked On Buffs host joining me. Yeah, it's just whatever works. Whatever works. I'll talk about whether there could be chaos or not in the ACC later on today's show as well. But Kevin, let's start with this game because before the season, this is one that I had penciled in as a loss for Colorado. Well, it's Utah. Utah is better. Colorado's not ready for that yet. Utah isn't ready for Colorado for two reasons. Reason number one. Isaac Wilson is back at quarterback. I don't even know if Brandon Rose would make all the difference in the world. He showed glimpses against BYU last week, but it's Isaac Wilson, and this Colorado defensive front is playing really well. Reason number two, Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter still play for the Buffs. So that's kind of all I need to look at it and say, yeah, I'm taking the Buffs big here over Utah. At 10 points, swallow it. Swallow it. I say Colorado steamrolls.
Yeah, I think at the beginning of the season, I looked at this game and I was like, well, Utah's probably going to win the Big 12. That's a tough game to win at the end of the year. Now I'm looking at it as like a trap game for Colorado where it's like they need to take Utah seriously. Like that's kind of the mindset now because you look at this Utah team and it's like they haven't put up any points against anyone at all. They've lost to Houston. Their defense is the only reason that they aren't completely terrible. Their defense is actually a top 15 defense in college football, and that's kind of the reason that I've been telling the Locked On Buffs listeners, like, hey, make sure that like Colorado doesn't overlook them because they can shut down an offense. Obviously, they haven't played one of this caliber, but they have had some success. And Spencer, if I told you before the year that you had to guess which one of these teams was ranked top 10 in sacks in the country, which one would you have guessed? Because
I would have picked Utah. I would have picked Utah, and I'm somebody who has been on the bandwagon of the Buffs are going to be better, and the trench play is a big reason why. I think their defensive line's been better than their offensive line this year, but boy, they're even surpassed. Colorado's defensive line is a microcosm of my thoughts on the Buffs overall. I knew they'd be improved. I didn't know they were going to get to this level. That's not something I saw, but the defensive front is good.
Yeah, it's really good, and I think it's borderline elite in the Big 12. It's probably the best in the Big 12, and realistically, this Utah team has no chance of keeping up with Colorado. So, like, the only way for Colorado to lose this game is if Shedeur Sanders goes on a pick six spree. And I don't think that's, like, in his bag of badness because he's legit probably the best, if not the best quarterback in college football. I think he is. Some people may disagree, but to me, he's the best quarterback in college football. So there's really no team on the rest of the schedule that should stop him in this offense.
When I look at Utah's defense, they're exactly what I expected them to be. They're really good. In Utah's losses this year, of which they have dropped 5 in a row, they've given up 23, 27, 13, 17, and 22. So for the second straight season, Utah is just dealing with an insane amount of injuries to the quarterback position. Brandon Rose is out, the Cam Rising situation. Like, it's just... it defies the odds, quite frankly. And it's got to be really frustrating for the Utes fans in Salt Lake City because they're just looking around going, the defense is there. We know Kyle Whittingham can coach. There's just no quarterback here. They should be in the market for a transfer portal quarterback because I don't think Isaac Wilson's the answer. If Utah is able to pull this off, Kevin, I think that offense has to execute perfectly. And what I mean by that is, obviously, you can't turn the football over because given Colorado's offense extra possessions, you can't afford to do that. But they've got to be able to let their offense help their defense. This has to be a low-scoring game. There is no scenario, no world, not against this version of Colorado's defense, where Utah can go up and down the field and put up 30 or more points. I don't even think they can get to 20 on the road here. Boulder is going to be hopping. Yeah. I think this is Buffs all the way, but if Utah is going to hang around, they have to keep everybody under 20 points and try to win like a 17-14 game.
Yeah, Utah hasn't surpassed 22 points all season long, or excuse me, they've surpassed 23 points one time against a Power 5 opponent. The other two times were against Southern Utah, which you were on the call for that game, I believe.
I was indeed calling that game on radio on KSUB. Go
right.
Birds. Go Birds.
Utah State. And then other than that, they scored 22 points against Oklahoma State. Like, they just cannot score. And realistically, you would have to have a perfect game plan, right? They lose their starting quarterback, lost in the chaos of that controversial call against BYU. Brant Keithy's out for the year as well, and he was like their best weapon. And so there's really,
I might argue Dorian Singer, but Brant Keithy is very good.
I think Brant Keithy was the safety blanket for every quarterback.
Yes, 100%.
He's over the middle. Dorian Singer requires like throwing it outside, and like so now it's like, okay, Isaac Wilson, we need you to beat Travis Hunter, Preston Hodge, or DJ McKinney, who probably form maybe the best quarterback trio or top 5 quarterback trio in college football, where I just don't see that happening. And for Colorado, just play their game. I think my biggest key for them is don't get deterred by a slow start, because I do think that Colorado, for some reason, is horrendous to start games. Like that Texas Tech game was 13-0 in the first quarter in favor of Texas Tech. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I imagine with Utah's defense, there could be a sort of like it's 3-0, it's 6-0 by the time the second quarter rolls around. So just don't let that deter you, and just know like you control your destiny. So you, at the same time as like you don't have any room for errors, you kind of are able to just figure things out as you go.
A trifecta of reasons here why I like Colorado's defense in this spot. You've got Isaac Wilson on the other side, who's still a young and inexperienced quarterback. That's number one. Reason number two, Travis Hunter can take away the one guy. If I'm Deion Sanders, I'm going to my defense coordinator and saying, you're going to take 12, and in every single coverage, you're going to travel him with number 3 in red or white. I think Utah is wearing white this week. Jersey's actually. The IC whites are good. Is Colorado going all black? Please tell me.
We never know. Who knows? It's always a TBD kind of thing.
Oh, gosh, they should go all black. It would be a phenomenally uniform game, but I'm taking number 12 in black and traveling him with number 3 in white and saying, just take him out. Because if you do that, who's scaring you? Who's scaring you with Isaac Wilson back there? So those are the first two things. And then the third thing, this is in Boulder. It's already going to be harder to play offense. And you throw all these factors at, I think this could be the best singular performance for Colorado's defense all season long. And yeah, I think Colorado's defense is much improved from last year, and Travis Hunter is amazing. I think it's more about the fact that Utah does not have the ability to score a lot of points.
Yeah, I think Utah's offense is an insult to the offensive history where they invented the forward pass like however many years ago. And Utah, it feels like they haven't gotten that memo, right? Their passing attack is atrocious. We talked about it off air. I don't think they've done enough to really help out their quarterbacks. I think switching to, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, the former Northwestern dude, he struggled at Northwestern. And I don't know why they thought he'd be an upgrade, but this is not the defense to figure it out against. Colorado's defense, I think, is probably one of the most improved units in all of college football. And I think Robert Livingston, the defensive coordinator, I think he's probably the best hire in all of college football coordinator-wise, or at least he's up there for me. He has just turned this unit from, it was a disaster last year. They couldn't stop the run. Teams could literally just be like, okay, we won't throw to Travis Hunter, but we'll pick on anyone else. And now it's like, you are picking your poison with this defense. And for Utah, they want to run the ball. And Colorado's been really good at stopping the run. And so I know they're going to turn this into a game of like, hey, Isaac Wilson, see if you could beat Travis Hunter. And I don't think that's going to be a fun game. I don't
think he's going to throw that way. If I'm Isaac Wilson, I'm not throwing at 12. I'm going to throw anywhere else. But that means your top option, Dorian Singer's going to be taken away at the very least far more often than not. So, yeah, I think you and I both like Colorado big. But by what score exactly? How big does Colorado win? How big does everybody else win, if at all, in the Big 12? We're picking every game in the conference with our score predictions coming up next. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers, you can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. $5, $150. That's, I'm not a math major, but that's a lot more than your original wager, of course. And you just do that over at FanDuel.com. And all these games we talk about here on Locked On College Football, all the games we're about to pick in the Big 12, all the games I'm going to pick later in the ACC, yet you can bet all of them over at FanDuel.com. If you think I am an absolute doofus, you can fade the picks at FanDuel.com. If you think I'm a genius, You can ride the picks at FanDuel.com. If you think it's somewhere in between, sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong, you can bet however you feel it's going to play out over at FanDuel.com. Again, 150 in bonus bets for new customers if you win your first $5 bet. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Is this the week that BYU finally goes down? It's a time-honored tradition at this point here on Locked On College Football to ask that question. Will BYU finally lose this week? They feel destined to lose at some point. They're at home here, Kevin, and their favorite, by the way, I think Colorado is going to smack Utah 28-10. Score prediction on the Buffs, real quick?
35-10.
35-10. Okay.
Favorite Colorado.
Yeah. I'm not putting a lot of faith in the Utes. I don't even know if Utah will get to 10 points, but hey, congrats to them if they do. But going back to BYU here, because I have dubbed them the team of destiny. They are winning games they have no business winning. They had a 4th and 10 inside their own 10, a 4th and 7 inside their own 35, needing points in both situations with less than 2 minutes to go, and they wind up winning the football game. Like, that's got to run out eventually. But I'm not banking on that to run out at home. No. I don't care what the people in Provo are getting juiced up with. LaVell Edwards Stadium is awesome. I have been there. I've called a game before. It's a great environment. The fans are outstanding. The game day atmosphere and experience for fans and media alike is really, really good. BYU is a slight favorite here against Kansas. Now, this is a Kansas team.
It was very similar to Iowa State last week. We had the same issue.
Yup. Mm-hmm. And I look at this game, and Vegas is trying to tell me that it doesn't believe in BYU. It's saying, yeah, we're going to favor them by 2.5. I'm like, oh, so it's in Lawrence then? No. Oh, wait, no, Kansas plays neutral site games. That is right. So it's at Arrowhead. No. It's in. Is this a weird one-off neutral site game? No, it's in Provo. They're trying to tell you they think Kansas is good enough top to bottom to hang with BYU. And guess what? They are. They are. If they can hang with Iowa State, they can hang with anybody in the Big 12. But, well, this is definitely the week. This is the week that BYU goes down. Kansas in an upset here. Kansas on an upset in Provo, 28-24. Real BYU fans, they get it.
Yeah, they get it. They know your little shtick there. I don't think BYU loses this one. I think I said this last week, but I do think they lose next week to Arizona State, which isn't the question here. That being said, I think they win a close one. I think it's going to be like 24-21. Kansas is like oddly the hottest 3-6 team I've seen this in the season in the country.
They're
right
the
now.
Best 3-6 team in college football.
Right. So like this is going to be another week for BYU where I think they're pushed to the brink. I just think that they kind of have that juice, that sort of that caffeine, if you will, in their blood right now. That's just helping them win games.
I agree. They've got that magic, but it runs out. This week against Kansas. Just you wait and see, BYU fans. That's for me, Spencer McLaughlin, noted BYU hater, obviously. Let's talk about Iowa State, by the way. They're playing Cincinnati. They're at home. I don't know. Iowa State... Yeah, so that's how I feel about Cyclones right now. But I think they're winning the game. I'll go with a weird score just for fun, 25-20. I think Iowa State will beat Cincinnati.
Yeah, so this is when Iowa State blows them out, right? When you have no expectations for them, that's when they perform their best. When you have expectations for Matt Campbell and Iowa State,
that way.
That's when they let you down. So I'll probably go like 35-17 Iowa State, and then everyone's going to be like, oh, Iowa State's back. And it's like, no, they just can't win the games that they have to.
Would you like to... Yeah, sorry, but would you like to know a team that has a legitimate chance to get to the Big 12 championship game and is a big fan of its former Pac-12 brethren, the Utah Utes, this week? Arizona State.
Oh, yeah.
Arizona State needs Colorado to lose one game, and they have to win their final three, and ASU would be 10-2 and into the Big 12 championship game, presumably against BYU in this spot. They go to Kansas State. The problem for Arizona State, of course, they're at Kansas State. They host BYU, and then they have Arizona. And boy, I didn't have ASU favored over Arizona on my bingo card before the year, but that's certainly the case. I don't know if Brent Brennan's coaching for his job this week. There was a rumor from Jason Shear at Wildcat Authority that he is potentially on the hot seat 1 year. I mean, it's not going well. Well, let's talk.
It's just crazy.
It is crazy. I think it's a little. I think it's a little bit crazy. We'll talk about that in a bit. But Kansas State favored by 7.5, hosting Arizona State. I think ASU covers. This is a good Arizona State team. That number's up to 8.5, by the way. I think Arizona State goes in and keeps it close, but I don't think they go in there and outright win. 31-24, I like Kansas State.
Yeah, I don't trust Arizona State on the road is my issue. And so the road game, the little apple, as they call it, I'm picking Kansas State here. I think Kansas State covers, though. I think it'll be we'll go like 28-17 kind of vibe here. Is the mathing on that? Did I math correctly?
You did. Yes.
Okay.
28-17 covers 8.5.
I lost all confidence for a quick second. That's 11.
Kevin needs to come locked and loaded with a calculator here, making his appearance on the show. I'm actually going to revise my prediction because I like Arizona State's defense, Kansas State at home, but 24-17. 24-17, I think at Kansas State will get it done. How about West Virginia and Baylor? This game is at West Virginia, and that's the only reason I have to pick the home team. Baylor's one of the surprise teams in the Big 12. Dave Aranda's in the process of going to a bowl game and definitely saving his job for another season in Waco. If this game were in Waco, I'd pick Baylor. This game's in Morgantown. I'll take West Virginia, who picked up a nice victory last week.
Yeah, I'm actually going to ride with the Bears. I think they're the best team that's 5-4 in the country. I love Sawyer Robertson. I really do. Honestly, I remember when they played Colorado, and it was like, who's better, him or DeQuan Finn? And like watching him play, I was like, how is that even a question ever? Like Sawyer Robinson is the guy for me. And I just don't know if I trust Neil Brown to be consistent. Like, this is like the battle of coaches who should be fired but keep accidentally winning. So I'm going to go with Baylor. I'm going to go 24-21.
The unfortunate reality is that that's a factual statement, is both fan bases have pockets of them that are just waiting for the game that will get their coach fired, and he just keeps on winning. He just won't go away.
They're like little cockroaches. They're just like, you could
just there.
They're just there.
They're just there. But both guys are doing a fine job. They're not doing a bad job. They're just not doing a great job. They're like my beloved Portland Trailblazers, stuck in neutral, or my beloved Seahawks, stuck in neutral. It's a good thing I have a college football team where sports would be complete misery, because the Mariners are also stuck in neutral. So the Friday night game is Houston at Arizona. Arizona's favored by a point.
Oof.
I continue to think that Arizona is going to figure it out. Yeah. And I continue to be wrong. And Arizona is the inverse Colorado for me with regards to my preseason expectations. People had Arizona propped up as a Big 12 title contender. I said, no, they're not that team. And they're not. But I thought they were a bowl team. Some people had Colorado's going to stink again. They won't be better. And I said, no, they're better. They're a bowl team, 6 or 7. I'll go with 6. They've obviously already won more games than that and will get a win against Utah this week. Arizona is not going to be a bowl team this year. I mean, I'm not picking them again until they prove to me they can win football games. I mean, it's bad for Brent Brennan. And I mentioned earlier, Jason Scheer, Wildcat Authority, tweeted out that there are some rumors, apparently, that Brent Brennan's job security could be on the line. Be a fat payout for Brent Brennan. He wouldn't be struggling to get by financially there, but he'd be without a job. But I'm taking Houston to win. I've got no faith in Arizona because they're not just losing. They look bad. They look bad on both sides of the ball. They look completely and utterly lost. Give me Houston in a close one, 24-21.
Yeah, I think Houston wins. Houston's hot right now. They just beat Kansas State. They beat
Houston.
Utah.
Could go over 500 in the Big 12 if they win this football game. I don't think most people realize that.
Right, and Houston is, I don't think most people realize this as well. They're 2 wins away from a bowl game. They got 3 games left counting this one, and Arizona and Baylor seem like the more winnable of the 2 when you look at the last one, which is against BYU. So I'm going Houston here. In terms of Brent Brennan, he should have never left the comfort of Nick Nash's arms at San Jose State, because he had it all there and he lost it all. So tough situation. But yeah, I'm going Houston. I think this game's going to be ugly, though. I expect like a 17-14 kind of game.
Ugh.
I thought Noah Fafita would be like one of the best quarterbacks in the country, but he's like fallen off a cliff and been replaced by like a clone that's terrible.
Yeah, I think no Jed Fish is, surprise, having an impact. I know Arizona fans don't want to hear that, but
maybe he should have followed him to Washington. You know who's not trusting those? T-Mac. He's having a great year.
Yeah, that's true. That's how the Big 12 is playing out this week. That's Kevin Borba, Locked On Buffs. Kevin, appreciate it as always.
Yep.
ACC is either going to be really, really fun or really, really boring. Let's hope for the first one, and I'm going to pick those games coming up next. First reminder, this episode brought to you by Game Time, which has Game Time picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets and all these different seats. No, they know exactly how to tailor what you want. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever you're looking for, they've got it. And they give you a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly what you're getting. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. So this week in the ACC is going to be one of two things. It is either going to be a boring snooze fest that makes you wonder why anyone even cares about the conference or whether they should get an automatic berth in the first place, or it's going to be hectically chaotic and you just can't get enough of it. I'm rooting for the second one. Not saying I'm rooting for any particular team to lose, just that chaos is always more fun for someone in my position. But I say that because the lineup this week in the ACC, at this point in the year when we know definitively the ACC is going to be a one-bid league, because SMU, who I'm going to talk about in just a moment, SMU can't crack the top 12. Their only loss is by 3 points to a currently top 10 ranked undefeated BYU team, the favorites in the Big 12. SMU's beaten everybody else. But the committee doesn't look at the ACC and see a lot of great teams. And you know what? I have a hard time blaming them. There are some solid teams. There's some good teams. There are not a lot of great teams over in the ACC, especially since Clemson has taken themselves down a rung after playing at what looked like a championship level for a couple months. And then they decided, let's go back to being the modern day Clemson. None of this old Clemson nonsense. No, we want to stick with this new version of Clemson in which we're just, we're there. So SMU plays Boston College this week, and Boston College now has a transfer at the quarterback position, a transfer out. His name is Thomas Castellanos, and if you understand that reference, let me know. But he's transferring away from the program because he's no longer the starting quarterback. He was the starter this year. Remember when Boston College, week 1, I think it was, beat Florida State, and it was, whoa, Boston College? They were like a 17.5-point underdog. We didn't know FSU was terrible yet. We thought they just weren't great. But turns out they were horrifically bad, but that doesn't matter. Boston College beating Florida State, that's a big deal. That's a big deal in Chestnut Hill. So Boston College has got a quarterback transferring out of the room. That means one of two things, and there's not a lot of in between. Just like I don't think there's a lot of in between with how the ACC goes as a league this week as far as how the games play out. It's either chaos or boredom. I'm hoping for chaos. One of two things happen when you make a quarterback change and then the guy who gets replaced says, I'm transferring out of the program. I don't want to be here anymore. That either disrupts the chemistry and things go awry, or it introduces a spark like Haj Malik Williams at UNLV. Matthew Sluka says, no, I wanted NIL, and UNLV says, okay, we're going to put this other guy in, and he's arguably playing even better football at the moment. So I'm leaning towards, I don't know if I love the vibes here. I think Boston College started hot, maybe peaked a little early, and they've been coming down. SMU's on the up and up. This is the favorite to win the ACC from a record standpoint. They're the only unbeaten team in ACC play. I think SMU beats Boston College. I think SMU covers as well. I think this is a big win. 42-16, I think SMU beats Boston College. How about Clemson? The aforementioned Clemson Tigers. They're going to Pitt this week in a game between two good teams. That's it. There's nothing great about these teams. The loser's probably unranked. Probably unranked. And you know what? Probably should be. And the winner, Pitt is already unranked, of course, but if they win, they'll be back in the top 25. If Clemson loses, they should be out of the top 25. Tigers are favored by 10 points. It's on the road, though. Let me ask you, do you have a lot of confidence in Clemson to go on the road and cover 10 points against a Pitt team that is good but not great? I do not. So I think Clemson wins, but I think this is close. Clemson wins the game. This is going to be a weird score. You ready? Get ready. Brace yourself. 27-25. Clemson beats Pitt on the road. Notre Dame is not an ACC team. They're playing an ACC team, though. And amongst the underrated surprises in the ACC this year. Virginia is one of them. They're not making national news. They're not rewriting the record books or anything, but they're just trotting along. And yeah, they're on track to be a bowl team. Well, they could be on track to be a bowl team. So they knocked off Pitt last week, knocked them out of the top 25. But the problem that they have is their remaining schedule goes like this. They go at Notre Dame this week. They're a 23-point dog. They host 14th ranked SMU, and they go at Virginia Tech. They might miss a bowl game, but it's still a pretty solid season for the Cavaliers. They are 23-point dogs, as I mentioned, in Notre Dame. I think they'll cover. Yeah, I said it. Virginia's going to go into South Bend, and they're going to cover. That's it. Notre Dame wins the football game 38-23. How about Louisville and Stanford? So Louisville goes to Stanford. They make that cross-country trip. They go to the farm. Stanford's down in the dumps, 1-5 in ACC play. Everything was looking up after that win against Syracuse early this season, but Troy Taylor and company just haven't been able to get it going. And Louisville, meanwhile, back in the top 25. Going to Stanford. The number's just a little bit too high. 38-20. I take Louisville to win, but Stanford, I think, just covers that particular number. They're due for a cover, which is, unfortunately for the Cardinal, and I have a semi-affinity to them because my grandparents went there and are Cardinal fans. Yeah, that's as good as they do nowadays. They cover and you go, oh, well, hey, yeah, that was a good performance, but yeah, that's kind of it. Wake Forest goes to North Carolina. Mac Brown is pushing for bowl eligibility. So too is Wake Forest. Similar stakes here, as in they're not very high. They're in fact very low in the national scheme of things in college football. But North Carolina's at home, favored by over 10 points. I'm loving me some dogs this week. I think North Carolina wins the game 26-17. 26-17, I'll take North Carolina here. Wake Forest, yeah. Those are my official thoughts on the Demon Deacons here. How about a surging team in Cal? Yeah, that's right. I said it. Cal, surging team. They're 1-4 in the ACC. Syracuse is already bowl eligible. Cal's still trying to get there. Cal still has to play Stanford. That's probably the biggest game on their schedule. They had the 4-game winning streak, but suddenly Cal has figured some things out. And it's not as if they never showed the glimpses, the potential. I mean, they lost to Florida State by 5, to Miami by 1, to Pitt by 2, to NC State by 3. That's just pain and suffering there for Golden Bears fans. And unfortunately, that's been standard operating procedure under Justin Wilcox is, boy, they are so close to being good, but they're not quite there. But last couple of weeks, offense, 45 points per game. Against a Syracuse team that, look, they're not a defensive stopper. They've got plenty of offense, though. Cal's favored by 7.5. That number's too big. That number's too big. Because for the Golden Bears in this spot, to win by that many, you'd have to play complementary football. Anytime you're going to beat a good, solid team like Syracuse by more than a touchdown, you have to play complementary football. You have to do some of the little things well. But mostly, you got to be competent on both sides. That's why Miami doesn't blow a lot of people out. They can't play any defense. Miami has a bye this week, which also makes the ACC slightly less interesting than it can be because Miami's the most interesting team in the ACC this year, of course. But I digress. Cal's got to be able to play well on both sides. And yeah, they've done that once in the last 2 games against Oregon State. But against Wake Forest, yeah, the defense kind of had some lapses late, but the offense was really good. The offense ran the football, and Fernando Mendoza looked like the good version of Fernando Mendoza. So I'll take Cal to win. But again, I like the underdogs this week in the ACC. Give me Wake Forest to cover, and Cal wins a close one, 30-28. That's how everything's playing out in the ACC this week. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.